Kansas City housing market has been on quite a roller coaster ride with all this conflicting information on whether to buy now, sell, hold, do I wait? Hey, well in today's video we are going to break it all down. We're going to look at the data, look at the market and tell you whether we're headed towards doomsday or if there's a little bit of light at the end of the tunnel.
Oh my gosh, we're talking about the future and I just realized we look like we're dressed for a funeral. We're both wearing black. All right, so let's stop. That's better. Because the future is bright. Hey, I'm Max, this is Zach. We're with the Mojo Real Estate team here in Kansas City, and we have been helping people just like you buy and sell homes in this fantastic city for over 20 years. So we've been helping people for over 20 years, and we are gonna get into this video quickly.
Let's go.
Current market overview. So we're gonna tell you how the market is currently, and then we're going to move on and talk about the future, which I think is quite bright.
Quite bright.
Yeah, so right now we are in September, early September, so we're heading into the fourth quarter. First quarter of 2024, rates were pretty high, and they had been high for about a year.
Yep.
And it had slowed down the number of sales. So there's two markets. There's the market that you care about, which is the price of homes. And then there's the market that we care about, which is the number of sales, the sales volume. And the sales volume had gone down in our market area over 20%.
Yeah, over the last 2 years, but last year again. So rates started climbing up, so we saw inventory started to stack up a little bit. We saw the velocity of sales start to decrease. So all those kind of things that kind of lead towards what we would call a bad market. It's bad for somebody and good for somebody else. So usually when those days on market start to creep up, it becomes a stronger buyer's market.
When we add inventory, it favors the buyer.
Yeah.
However, we didn't see it at enough inventory to really be called a buyer's market. And we didn't see the prices come down. In fact, they continued to rise at a modest rate.
Yep.
Relative to the way they were before rates went up.
So right now what we're seeing is the market is improving. People are getting excited about it. The news is starting to talk about it because these rates are starting to drop finally. There's a little relief. The Fed's made a couple of announcements. There's another one coming up that we are anxiously anticipating. And there's an election here at the end of the year too that tends to help rates and the economy. So I guess we can get into some of the details, but days on market have been going down, sales have been picking up, and the market's looking pretty good. Current state of the market, let's talk about inventory, go into a little more detail on that. So currently in Kansas City, we are sitting at 2.2 months of inventory, which means if not another house was listed, it would take 2.2 months at the velocity homes are selling to sell every house on the market in Kansas City right now. And there's 6,500 of them, just so you know. And that's up a little bit over first quarter, which was 1.9 months of inventory. So we kind of mentioned that at the beginning of this video that our inventory has been building and our days on market they were at all the way up to 42 days on market in first quarter. And now we're starting to see them come down to 30. So as the rates have gotten better, more buyers have come out of the woodwork, so to speak. Like we said, they're talking about rates on the news. They're making all these announcements. So that's kind of getting unfortunately, everybody gets their information from the TV stations.
Back in the heyday, before rates even went up, this has been almost 2 years now, the average day on market was 48 hours. It was insane.
Yeah.
It was the best time to be a seller I've ever seen in my career. And that's changed quite a bit. The effect that the higher rates have had is the desired one. Inflation was getting out of control. Something had to be stopped, and it has been putting the brakes on those inflationary pressures. So now we're seeing, what would you say?
32 days on the market.
32
is
days.
The average for Kansas City right now. So,
yeah.
Which is down from 40. So.
Yeah, and I think that's why I think that the future is bright, is that for buyers, it's improving. And it's been a long time coming for several years that it's been just a crazy seller's market. And so now it's the buyer's turn to have a little bit of, a little bit more opportunity in the market. So if you are a buyer, that you're not going to be competing against quite as many multiple offers where you're having to remove your appraised value contingency, pay over the asking price, waive the appraisal, all of these measures that buyers had to take in order to compete against the 20 other offers on the house they loved. You don't have to do that. Sometimes it's been on the market, 2 weeks, the seller's negotiable. They might be willing to pay some of your closing costs, make a price reduction, pay for a home warranty. All of those things buyers have not been able to even consider asking for the past couple years.
Yeah, and it even opens it up. So back then it was like cash and conventional only. And now that opens it up to VA financing, FHA financing, seller paid closing costs. So there's all these doors that have been open for buyers that just couldn't compete 2 years ago. So it's really given everybody an opportunity, which is good to see because there were so many frustrated people too. I mean, when you have 30 offers on one property, there's 29 people that aren't getting a house that really want that house.
A lot of broken hearts.
A lot of broken hearts. And you can only handle that as a buyer so many times before you give up, throw your hands up in the air, and just go to rent something. So there is still a lot of buyers out there that didn't win during that time, and they're starting to get back in the market now that rates are coming down. And it's a great time to do it because we've got inventory, we've got stuff to choose from. You know, we're not all fighting over the same house, so it's great.
Yeah, we haven't seen it shift so much that prices have started to come down. So prices are still kind of trickling up. I mean, they have historically since the Great Depression on average gone up 5% every year. You know, there were back in the Great Recession, they did go down pretty significantly. And I think what we've seen is this inflation that we've experienced over the past couple years has been catch up from when prices went down so badly in 2009 and 10 and 11. There was some catching up to do to get back on that historical trend line of 5% for the past 100 years. And now if you look at the historical trend line, we're right back where we would have been had that correction not have happened.
Yeah.
When having lived through the roller coaster, it feels like prices have gone up crazy. But if you look historically, they're not that far out of line with where they should be. Okay, so we're talking about inventory, but what is the average home price in Kansas City right now?
In Kansas City right now, we are at $368,000 for the average, and then the median's coming in at $319,000. That's that weighted average, which is up. We are up 4% on the average price, and we are up 5% year over year on the median price. So like Max just said with the roller coaster, we're continuing to go up, just not like that 20%. 15% a couple years we had in there.
All right, so what we'd like to talk about next is local trends that actually influence the market, influence the price changes and then inventory. And really it's not just the macro trends, those do have an effect. Like the interest rates and whatnot, but really the local trends are also a big factor. And what would you say about Kansas City, some of the local trends we've got going on?
Yeah, kind of what I'm seeing right now when I'm talking to our current clients and people that are calling us on the phone is, well, with our current clients, like right now, people have been stuck, you know, that bought their house back when rates were like 2.5%, 3%. They just can't wrap their head around move. Maybe they've had babies and their family's growing and they're just living in a confined space now because they're like, we just can't let go of that 2.5% or 3% interest rate. Well, now that rates are starting to come down, we're starting to get those calls like, hey, we're thinking about it, we're really close, what do you think we should do? Because they need to move, they've just been held back because of that. So I think we're gonna see a lot more of those people that want to move that are gonna start moving instead of just the people, like recently we've been working with just the people last year or so that have to move, or they're relocating, divorces, things like that. But now we're starting to get calls from the people that want to move because things are getting back to a more affordable and sustainable and more of a balanced market that's good for everybody.
Yep, 100%. And then when you talk about the local trends, Kansas City is a growing city. I believe it was 20,000 jobs added in 2024 so far. So a lot of companies are coming and investing in Kansas City. It's right in the center of the country. And so what we're seeing is a lot of companies like Google and Meta.
Panasonic's got that EV plant that they're putting in.
Some of the fastest growing school districts in the city and in the region are in Kansas City. It's a growing metropolis on several areas, you know, not only one area of Kansas City, but several spots in Kansas City are really growing fast. Really on all quadrants of the city are growing. So that's the local trend that I think is why the future is bright.
And a lot of people are coming here because of the value, or you know, the housing prices and the cost of living continue to be super competitive. We've got all those big city amenities for the most part, but we've got that kind of a small city kind of charm going on. So a lot of people are flocking here. We've got a little more elbow room, a little more space, all the amenities for a little less money. Kind of like what the firecracker salesman says, you know, the best bang for your buck. And that's kind of why people are flocking to Kansas City right now.
All right, so future
predictions for Kansas City.
I don't have a crystal ball, but I do have a lot of experience. We have a lot of experience, and my experience tells me that the market is actually not going to have a cool down. We hear it all the time. I think it's a little bit of a recency bias from the people that lived through the 2009 Great Recession. They're just waiting for the bubble to pop where they do something. And I'm afraid if you wait for that to happen, that it'll have been a mistake. My forecast is that prices are going to continue to go up along that 5% trend line, that rates are going to come down, and the Fed has already gotten dovish and indicated they're probably going to do a cut. We'll see here in September whether they actually do cut rates. I don't think it'll be a dramatic. They'll probably cut by 0.25%, but I think they're going to start doing that systematically.
My predictions kind of follow along the same thing. You know, here in the Midwest, although we did have our COVID appreciation crazy like the rest of the country, but we're pretty much steady Eddie. We kind of just hold to that 3 to 5% appreciation. Even back in '07, when the market hit the fan, Kansas City as a whole didn't get decimated like some of the coastal places like Arizona and West Coast, East Coast. We pretty much held our ground. In fact, there were some neighborhoods, especially with like lake properties and stuff, that just flatlined for a couple years before bouncing right back. I see steady growth here. Just like what Max said, I think as rates start to come down, more buyers are going to get back in, and as that inventory shrinks back down again to back getting closer to like 10 days on the market, or inventory's lower, and those prices are going to start to escalate a little bit, and we'll have to get a little more aggressive with our offers and maybe some less concessions. But I think it's going to be a healthy market. I know all the builders that we talk to are they're trying to get houses in the ground as fast as they can because they see this coming, and I think that's a good indication for a nice, healthy market. We got a lot of people moving to Kansas City. It's a great spot.
There's not a lot of hype in Kansas City. It's easygoing, normal Midwestern kind of blue collar people with that, lack of hype. Maybe if you start talking about the Chiefs and Mahomes, there's a little bit of hype there. But seriously, that's why things didn't get super out of control like some of these areas, Florida and some of these areas that have a lot of hype surrounding them. People had FOMO and wanted to get, buy things as prices were going crazy. We didn't see a lot of that.
So buyers, if you're coming in town and you want to hit the ground and you want to have everything in your favor, the first thing we recommend is you've got to get pre-approved. You got to have that in your hand. Maybe have a little extra money for some closing costs. You got to have your down payment squared away. Have all those boxes checked, right? And if you need lender contacts, reach out to us. We work with lenders every day. We know some of the best in Kansas City, and we highly recommend a local lender to Kansas City if you want that buyer to take your offer, or if you want that seller, to take your offer seriously. Having a local lender is paramount.
It really helps if you can't get a hold of someone that you can drive to their office and see them in person. A lot of these lenders that are out of state.
Yeah, the .com lenders that show you a good rate, but then they're a nightmare to work with a lot of the time. So
yeah, you're calling a call center and you don't know who you're talking to. Definitely recommend that you work with a mortgage banker and you know their name and you know where their office is. And the seller likes to see that too. So it makes everybody feel warm and cozy that you're pre-approved with a local. So if you're thinking about putting your home on the market, what we usually do is we'll come over, meet with you, and go over an initial consultation. And a lot of that has to do with, we'll pull comps and do an analysis from an online perspective, based on what's publicly available, and then we'll dovetail that with what we see in the home. From a pricing standpoint, there's some strategies around pricing. From a preparation standpoint, there's a lot you can do to prepare the house for the market.
Yeah, that's kind of where I'm going, or where I think, like a lot of the questions I get is like, people are like, do I paint this room? In general, you want, just like if you're selling your car, right? You want to go out and you want to wash it, you want to clean the carpets out, you want it to put some Armor All on it, you want it to smell like a new car. Ideally, especially in this market, buyers are a little more picky right now, so it is a good idea to tackle what you can, but a house is a big thing. Like anything, it takes a lot of time, and you don't want to overdo it either and totally miss your window of when you wanted to hit the market. That's why it's another great reason to lean on us, because literally just a year ago, like old nasty carpet, didn't matter. You could sell your house, or a year and a half ago, whatever it was, you'd sell your house and still have multiple offers. And now in this current market, buyers are a little more picky, and they want it to look more move-in ready, so you can't get away with that. And we're having to see, you have to paint, you have to remove the carpet and put in some nice stuff to make it more appealing to the buyer pool.
And there's a fine line there. And this is where you can lean on us is, we don't want you going and spending thousands of dollars on putting all new granite countertops in, and you also really have to be really careful about choosing taste-specific things. So if you are freshening up the paint, that you're not painting it pink or some, that we have home stagers that we hire at our expense that can come in and help you make those decisions. So what you want to do is you want to appeal to the widest group of people possible. You always want to consider return on investment. So you don't want to spend too much money, but you want to make it as move-in ready as possible, and that way you can compete with the house down the street that is also for sale.
It does depend what your competition is and what the current market trends and what's out there. So yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, we go into all these houses. Pretty much every house on the market, we'll end up either showing it to a buyer or going in and looking at it as a preview and to see how it competes against the listing that we're about ready to put on the market. So you can lean on us there too. We can help you make those decisions along with our home stager. Maybe our contractors would come in and give you a bid on to do just enough to get it sold and appeal to the buyer, but not too much where you're not getting a return on your investment.
All right, Max, so how can buyers make their offer stand out in the current environment?
Well, that's a great question. So there's several things that we had to rely on when the rates were low and we were dealing with multiple offers. We talked about pre-approval. You have to be pre-approved, and it's nice to be with somebody that's local. But after you get past that, what you want to do is make your offer as competitive as possible from a price perspective. You don't want to overpay for the home, but we can pull comps and make sure that you're making a competitive offer based on their list price. Kind of depends on how long they've been on the market too, to determine how negotiable they are. It is nice if you can pay for your own closing costs. Sellers sometimes, really they should only care about the net proceeds and not worry about the expense column. But sellers do get hung up on your financial strength. If you don't have any money in your pocket to pay for your own closing costs, that makes you look like a little bit of a weaker buyer. So if you're able to pay for your own closing costs, that's fantastic. If you are putting a decent chunk of money down as a down payment, that makes you look better. If you're putting 1% down with a special financing and asking for them to pay closing costs, if you have some money in your pocket to put 20% down and paying your own, that makes you look better.
Yeah, you can also increase your earnest money a little bit. We kind of see 1% as a standard here, but you can increase that. That makes you look like a stronger buyer. You do have the ability still, like we had to use some of these tools in the heyday where we had to waive our inspections. We never recommend you do that, but that is an option. You can also do appraisal waivers.
Well, before you move on to appraisal, there are several different ways you can waive your inspection. You can do what we would never recommend, and that's not do an inspection at all. Some people, investors, will do this if they really know what they're doing. You can also waive the renegotiation after inspections. Yeah. So you can say, I'm going to do inspections, but I promise I'm not going to
ask for any repairs.
Ask for price reduction in lieu of repair, or you can also do the say, I'm going to do inspections and my intention is not to ask for any repairs, but I still could should I find a major problem. There's in its present condition addendum, we can go through it in detail with you. There's different ways you can do that. That is nice from a seller's perspective to know that the dollar figure that you're offering is solid and that it's not going to change after inspections. But also the appraisal.
Yeah, the appraisal, there's different things you can do with that should you need to, where you waive that or a portion of that. So that's a way you can make your offer really competitive if you're in that position where you have to compete with somebody.
With the appraisal, I'll just add that usually if you're putting more than 20% down, the lender will not require an appraisal. So that's nice for you and the seller because an appraisal costs $500, so you don't have to waste your money on one. If you've got enough skin in the game, then the bank knows that you're not going to, the value, whether it's, $350, $360, $340, doesn't really matter. But if you're just putting a low amount of dollars down, like 5%, 3.5%, then it more than likely will be required. You can waive it if you have the cash, if you have the ability to pay
the difference
if it does happen to appraise lower than the contract price. Mm-hmm. Not ideal to do, of course, to pay what it more than it appraises for, but it is a tool that a lot of buyers used when they were were competing against 20 other offers.
And then terms is another one, you know, being flexible with your terms. A lot of times what we'll do is we'll reach out to the seller, the seller's agent, and just be like, hey, when's their ideal close date? And trying to match your close date up with that. So that's another way that you can win if you end up in a competitive environment. For the most part right now, it's not like that. It's pretty even, it feels like. People are getting fair prices and fair timelines.
Yes. One more thing I will just add to making your offer look as good as possible. I would say it's to have our name on it. And not to brag,
That's a good point.
but it really is important. Your reputation as a real estate agent is huge, and we have a fantastic reputation across the industry, especially right in the metro and in the Northland where our office is. We know all the agents in town, all the productive ones anyway. It makes them feel good when they get an offer from an experienced agent. Our industry is full of part-time people, semi-retired people that might sell 1 or 2 homes a year. We sell 250 homes a year, help 250 families, and we have a fantastic reputation in the industry. So I think that goes a long way to making the listing agent feel good, and then they present that offer like, hey, we got this offer from Max and Zach, and they know that we are going to perform.
Yeah, they're confident that we're going to close on it. And like you said, it's the old 80-20 rule, right? 20% of the realtors in Kansas City do 80% of the business. So we're all working with each other, and we know which agents we trust. We know who can get to the finish line. And that's what we do. So we've consistently been, I don't know, for the last 10 years in the top 5% real estate teams in Kansas City, kind of keep moving up that notch. So I've heard that we've won deals in multiple offer situations just because they trusted we could get it to the finish line.
In fact, it doesn't happen often, but there have been sellers that have been willing to take a few $1,000s less to work with us and our team, knowing our reputation. So not to brag, but having our name on the contract does help, having us in your corner. All right, so we've told you about the market, we've told you about some strategies as buyers and sellers, and what we'd like to do is wrap up the video with a little testimonial, a case study of some situations that we've run into with people like yourselves.
So one that comes to mind is, a lot of you guys are coming in from out of town, and if you get into Kansas City, you're only here for maybe a few days and you're back out again. So we have sold several houses to people through FaceTime. In fact, we've sold a couple to people who never even came to Kansas City. We got on the phone and had the discussion about what's really important. And then through FaceTime and technology, even driving through the neighborhood, so you can see how it is to drive into your neighborhood, into the house, and then walk through the house. That's something that we can do, and that's something that we've recently done with a couple people.
Yeah, when you come to town for 3 or 4 days, you'll get acquainted with the area, but it might not be that the perfect home is available right during that 3 to 4 day window for you to make an offer while you're here. What we can do is get you acquainted with the area, find the areas that you really resonate with, get to know you, get to where you trust us to be your boots on the ground, and then follow that up with virtual showings through FaceTime. That can be a great way for us to work with you. Whatever's best for you guys. So we've picked people up from the airport, helped them go get to their rental car, made recommendations on an Airbnb that they can use. We have some rental properties. We've put people up for a short-term rental in some of our properties. What we'll do, we'll do just about anything that gets the job done. We come up with a customized plan based on you and your needs, and it's not a one-size-fits-all type of scenario. So we'll figure out what's important to you and come up with a plan for you.
Yeah, look, we've been mostly a referral business our whole lives for over 22 years, and we want you to have a great experience. And I think if you look us up on Google with over 650 5-star reviews, you can see that's what we provide.
In fact, I'll just share one more story that just happened last week. Well, we just closed on it yesterday. Not the best situation, but we had several transactions I think it was one of our listings that was for sale, and a buyer from one of our agents.
Buyer.
Yeah, one of our Mojo buyers was buying that listing, and then
that listing was another Mojo listing.
Yes, and then she was buying that house, I believe. Anyway, it was like 4 or 5 transactions all lined up with Mojo clients, and it all hinged on a contingent buyer or I don't even think they were contingent.
That was an FHA buyer.
An FHA buyer buying a half duplex, and that was the first buyer in the chain, and their financing fell through, which was a big bummer for lots of people. And
And it fell through a week before closing, let's say, right?
Yes, yeah.
Not at the day one.
yeah, a week before closing, their financing falls through. Everybody is devastated, looking for answers, trying to solve a problem. And so Zach and I thought of a solution, and it's not something that we like to make it a habit of doing. The solution was for us to close in less than a week with cash for us to purchase the half duplex. And then we're going to turn around and sell it next week because we have the luxury of not worrying about time. You know, if it takes 30 days to get it sold, that's not a problem. But for them, it was a huge problem because they're moving this weekend.
Yep.
So that just gives you an example of the length that we will go to try and make it a wow experience for you guys. It really is what our business is built upon. It's the core of our business, is creating a wow experience for our customers, and that way you guys will introduce us to your friends and family. A little bit of a case study on an example of some things that we do for our customers, and we would love to hear from you and what your situation is and what we could do for you guys.
Yep. Give us a call, shoot us an email, reach out.
All right. Thanks so much for tuning in. We'll see you in the next video.